Layovers, your weekly dose of aviation innovation.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard from the flight deck. This is Paul Papadimitriou.
Hello everybody, this is Alex Hunter.
We'll be your pilots for this show about the news, the startups and the technologies defining the modern air travel experience. Our flight time today, just under an hour, and we expect at the time of arrival. Coming up on this flight, king-size bed seats, throne seats, configurable bench seats, new inventions in a world of reduced legroom, how consolidation in the US skies might hurt choice for the consumer, another smart luggage, one we might actually buy, a quite epic Emirates Business Class experience. Wow Air will fly you to Snapchat for them. Solar Impulse crosses the Pacific Ocean, the known story of a drone hitting a plane. Turnaround CEO of Malaysian quits after less than a year. As we reach our cruising altitude, I'm going to turn off the fasten seatbelt sign for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and let's turn on those noise-canceling headphones.
Flight 39 to Moscow. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Paul. Moscow. You know what? I've never been to Russia. For shame. But I need to get there.
That was my first time not long ago, so I said, why not? It's an interesting airport. We'll come to that at the end of the show. First, a very quick shout out to Solar Impulse. That's amazing, right?
It really is amazing.
They completed their flight across the Pacific Ocean. They landed in San Francisco, of all places. It was a few days ago, and that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, because they had a slightly longer layover in Hawaii than they anticipated because they had some technical issues, but just an extraordinary achievement that Bertrand Piccard, who, let's not forget, was the first person to fly around the world in a hot air balloon. So he loves this kind of stuff. So just an extraordinary achievement. Congratulations to those guys.
Yeah, it must be quite something because it takes a long, long time to do that. It's not as if you take a commercial flight and you just go, I'm about to do that. I'm about to do Pacific again next week, and it will take me quite a while, but not as long as they've taken because it's
60 hours.
Yeah, and it's not first class comfort, right?
No.
You don't have the small towel that is being offered to you or something. So yeah, kudos to them. Whether or not we'll be able to fly in our lifetime in a commercial airplane which uses electricity, I'm not sure, but I certainly hope that this will lead to more scientific discoveries. But as a human feat, amazing.
Yes.
How do you feel after you told us last time you passed your 7 stages of grief? How do you feel now?
I'm still a little melancholy about Virgin America, but what's done is done. I still maintain that we haven't heard the end of this. I think there's going to be some interesting announcements. The deal is, I'm sure, going to go through. It's got me reading a lot more about airline consolidation and the deregulation process in the 70s, because we're slowly moving back towards that with such a concentration of power in the U.S. that, I just kind of felt the right time to go back and read about how we got to where we are in the first place. But I'm really curious now to see what Alaska does with the Virgin America brand. They've come out and said publicly that they're struggling a little bit to figure it out, and they're really not sure how they're going to win over the Virgin America loyalists, which I admire Alaska and their CEO for coming out and saying that they don't have the solution yet. And I think it would be presumptuous of them to say that they did. So I'm looking forward to hearing how they intend to do that over the next couple of months. The deal should be done by the end of the year.
Yeah, there was I saw that a tweet by at Wonder Me. He read that the deal would have DOJ approval by the end of the year. I mean, that's expected. Doesn't mean that it will happen, but probably will happen. There was also a very interesting article about how the deal was constructed, how it happened on the Financial Times. It's behind a paywall, so sorry guys if you don't have access to Financial Times. I think it's 5 articles for free per month, so I hope you get into that, which shows exactly what you're saying. It shows that the hope for Alaska is also to try to be a worthy competitor against the Big Four, so basically trying to break amongst the consolidation of the US markets. Is it wishful thinking? I don't know, but can they be a worthy competitor? Maybe.
Yeah, I think they can. I think this was a good strategic move for them, setting aside the cost, because I know that's kind of what people are talking about. But I think it's going to take them several years to get it all figured out and integrated. This is not going to be an overnight process, and nor is it going to be smooth. These things never are. But it still leaves the big unanswered question, the elephant in the room, about 85% of capacity in the U.S. is controlled by 4 airlines. And again, Alaska is not one of them. So I don't see how we're going to fix that or how that's going to get any better.
Interestingly, in the article, since you're talking, as you mentioned the word overnight, They said that they had approached Virgin last year already, so it's not something that just happened very quickly. Apparently, it's something that's been brewing somehow. Alaska is trying to get out of its, they have a stronghold, but that's a very localized stronghold, and they want to expand. They're going to become the second largest operator at San Francisco, actually, after the very big, massive United, obviously, but still.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that shows that this deal has really thrown them, or the feedback from this deal has really thrown them. If they were thinking about this last year and they're now coming out and saying, boy, we didn't expect this, we're not sure how to integrate it, then the blowback they've received from the traveling public and from Virgin America passengers, they didn't see coming. They didn't predict. And that's fine. That's no one's fault. It's just interesting that it's kind of thrown an additional layer of complexity into this already complex deal.
And by the way, although Branson regretted the deal, it's still set to make a profit of about, according to the Financial Times, $465 million compared with the IPO price. So that's not too bad, right?
Yeah, I would not. And the only thing I would say to that is don't believe everything.
No, of course, no, I know, but I mean, it's still interesting. Talking about consolidations, since we're on that, you found a very interesting article on the New York Times about another startup airline that was trying to get off the ground. I mentioned that because, again, in that FT article, there's an analyst that says that basically this deal, Alaska Virgin, might be a one-off. It's not going to certainly spark a wave of smaller airlines buying each other, especially because of the amount of debt. Can you talk about that little airline, that the article that you found? Because it's actually it's a good point in that consolidation market.
Yeah, so this airline, or this concept airline, because it still really only exists on paper, has been floating around for years. And every time it pops up on airliners.net, they savage it, as airliners.net users are wont to do. But there is a chap in California, in the San Diego area, called Ted Vallis. He's 95 years old. He's wanted to start this airline called California Pacific Airlines, based out of a little airfield in the San Diego area called McClellan Palomar. And he wants to basically pop up and down the West Coast into places like Vegas and Phoenix. But he cannot get DOT and FAA approval or certification. They have, I think, one Embraer E-Jet. But the FAA has kept sort of rejecting their appeals, saying you don't have enough, your ducks aren't in a row, essentially. The application is, quote, incomplete, inaccurate, and does not appear to have been reviewed for quality. This is surprisingly this is something that I can sympathize with completely. The bureaucracy of starting an airline. But I don't know how well funded this airline is. I would be amazed if it ever gets off the ground, but I absolutely and totally admire Mr. Vallis for attempting to start an airline in the U.S. As I said on the last show, it's getting harder and harder and harder to do that in the U.S., and yet it's something that the country so desperately needs. And I think this is a really great example story of that problem. Whether we'll see these guys in the air, I just
and when you
so.
see the hurdles that
Sadly.
an airline, a more established airline like Norwegian, is getting to just fly in and out in the U.S., it just means that regulation. I get it. It's a foreign airline. They don't want competition. It's the same story against the ME3, but still it shows that, it's not very friendly towards newcomers, right? Like you said, the barriers of entry have increased a lot now, and I don't think we're going to see a new airline anytime soon, which is too bad, actually.
It is too bad. I mean, this article in the New York Times does a good job of pointing out the fact that if you're going to jump into markets and routes that are heavily trafficked by the incumbents, you're asking for a world of pain. But there are actually good opportunities in small and mid-sized airports and routes. I don't think the West Coast of California is one of those because there's so much capacity on those. But within the Midwest and in southeastern United States, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and that can only be a good thing. So, I hope there are more California Pacific Airways, and I hope that we see them in the skies sooner rather than later.
And I hope that someone comes up with a similar concept than Virgin America, because again, it was not only an airline, but it was a different type of airline. Proof is, I know it's a very small proof, but how the ground staff was having fun with the signs. There was a little story in the Huffington Post. Have you seen that?
Yeah, this is something that's happened since day one, and I'm glad that somebody's...
I know, that's what I'm asking you.
So one of the things that Virgin America did well was the plasma screens that they have at the gate. There's a section that can be customized with free text, and the teammates at the gate were encouraged to put in, funny or timely or contextual messages that would get a smile and kind of reflect the brand, differentiate. And there's a chap who is a Virgin America employee who put an album up on Imgur with a collection of all the ones that he's done. And some of them are very funny. I encourage you to go and take a look.
Another thing that Virgin America has been doing, but sadly I haven't seen them in a while do, is they've been active on Snapchat. I've been following a lot of airlines on Snapchat to see what they do. Virgin America is pretty funny. The other one that is actually pretty funny is WOW Air, another newcomer, another competition in the US markets. They want to fly you to and from Europe and to and from the US via Iceland. We mentioned them in a few shows. If you are into Snapchat at all, they're actually currently running a competition, and I'll put the link in the show note. It's snaptravelers.wowair.com, where they are going to select 4 people that are active on Snapchat, and they're going to give them the keys of the official WOW Air Snapchat account. They're going to send them in various destinations where WOW Air is flying. They're going to ask these winners to basically document the journey. So if you not only want to do fun stuff on Snapchat, but also have flights for free and doing some stuff, you should actually...
Fantastic.
It's a cool opportunity. I don't know how... It's very hard to get metrics out of Snapchat, meaning you know basically how many people are following you and especially how many people are watching your stories. So I don't know how effective it is, but it's very quirky. I follow also the White House and other accounts. Well, if you're into Snapchat, follow Virgin America. Well, they're still around because they're doing fun stuff. and follow WOW Air as well. And I'll put the link in the show notes if you're interested to participate in such a thing, because why not? It's fun. We talked in the last episode a lot about Virgin America, and then of course we also mentioned the proposed regulation to prevent airlines from further reducing legroom in the US skies. I said at some point in the episode that our discussion would set off Kendall from FlyerRights.org, and obviously it did. I think I received our email half an hour after our show was on the air. I'm not going to read the entire email because we had a very good conversation between her and me. We'll try to get her on the show. It's always hard, and I want to apologize for the people listening to us. We keep saying we're going to have people in as guests, but since both Alex and myself are traveling a lot, it's always... like we set the timing for the show like a bit on the fly. Oh, can you tomorrow? Let's do it tomorrow. So of course, when we want to have a guest, it's a bit more difficult. So I apologize for that, but we'll get guests, and especially Kendall. So Kendall is telling us a few things. First, he believes that we only fly premium. So Kendall, as I told you in the email, no, we actually do not only fly premium. I'm more guilty of that than Alex, probably. I do fly more premium, which means more business class travels than Alex. So no, we understand the pain of being in the back. I'm actually 6'5", 196 centimeters. Of course, we're sometimes probably also smart travelers, not smarter than others, but we know tools like Seat Guru, so we're able to, get the right seats. As I mentioned, the story of me being in Iceland Air and finding that seat with extra leg room that nobody would take because I was going on Seat Guru and I was going on the checking window just 24 hours before. So yeah, we get it. She told us, guys, there's a lot of lobbying. She provided some links as well to tell us that, look, there are very bad relationships between some lobbyists, the airlines. And she's not talking conspiracy theory here. I think she has a point. And her point is that the lobbying money is actually preventing this type of regulation to pass. The one point that she made, and that we actually both made, Alex and myself, I think it was more than 10 episodes ago, about that legroom thing, is that in case of an evacuation, a plane needs to be evacuated. I think it's 90 seconds. And those tests, those approvals for the aircraft were done under a different set of reality, meaning that the legroom was bigger. Would people be able to leave the aircraft if everybody is cramped at a 16-inch width and 26 legroom? I'm not sure. What do you think, Alex?
I don't know how I feel, to be entirely honest about it. I think the evacuation thing is absolutely critical, and that should be
tested.
Yeah, it should be tested. It should also be the kind of the litmus test, the priority, right? And I think that passenger health, not necessarily comfort, because that's a lot more subjective. What's comfortable to me is maybe not comfortable to you. Well, it isn't, because you're 4 inches taller than me. So what I can endure for 12 hours, you probably can't. But if there's, we get to a point where passenger health is at risk. We're seeing a quantifiable increase in DVT and things like that. We have to keep an eye on this. And I think that organizations like FlyerRights and others are doing important work by making sure that we are having these conversations. We are keeping an eye on these types of things. I don't know what the correct regulatory body is to ensure that this happens. Is it IATA? Is it Congress? No. I don't think it's Congress. I don't think Congress could regulate their way out of a paper bag, but I do think it needs some kind of intervention before it gets out of hand. It already is out of hand in some instances, but I don't know what the regulatory framework is.
And probably it's true that, coming back to your point about the consolidation of the US market, the fact that United, Delta, Americans, and Southwest have almost 85% of the market in the US means that they will lobby hard. I used to be a lobbyist, for those who don't know, right? In Europe, it's a very different mindset, probably as the US Congress type of lobbyist, but I used to be a lobbyist. And I believe that lobbyism is a reality. It should be regulated, more heavily regulated than it is now. But if you want action, if you want fast action, probably Alex is right. Probably IATA or bodies that are above it will actually have a better impact than the Congress.
Or even the DOT. I mean, I don't even know if that would fall under their jurisdiction, but they are a cabinet department in the U.S. But I also don't think this is necessarily something that the U.S. is and should be responsible for. That's why I think IATA, which I know is a kind of recommendations board. It's not like a lawmaking organization, but I just don't think that
or probably like you said, maybe the type of regulation that should be pushed is not talking about the sit pitch, because like you said, it goes into that whole sense of comfort, which again, the vast majority of people fly coach, right? We have a tendency sometimes to talk about our experiences in premium because they're more memorable by definition, and we talk about them in this show. We want to reassure our listeners we do travel in coach, we do travel low cost, but maybe the angle of attack should be that evacuation thing, to say, you know what, if you want to have your approval of having a 23-inch pitch on the seat, then prove us first that you can evacuate with that. Maybe that's not even on the airline. Maybe it could be the seat manufacturers. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not a specialist enough. Let's say in an ideal world, something that she presented, the organization presented, would get approved. In the reality, because probably of lobbying money and other factors, it won't. So maybe it has to be found another angle. I don't want her to give her, Kendall, I know you're listening to us, I don't want you to give advice because you know your job much better than we do.
I think it comes down to this. It's what are we regulating specifically? Is it seat pitch, and is that the metric by which all comfort can be measured and passenger health and evacuation? If so, great. I just don't think it is. I think there are other attributes that are important. Is it passengers per square foot? Or, you know what I mean? And then the second one is, when we are all comfortable with what we're measuring against, who is then responsible for doing it? Like, I just think about the smoking ban, which in my opinion happened way too late. We should have been doing it decades and decades ago. The fact that we were smoking
remember as a kid,
tin cans full of oxygen is staggering. But that was a really interesting conversation as well, because it was the FAA, the DOT, the Civil Aeronautics Board, just in the United States. So there were 3 organizations who had to get involved. So it's going to be a really interesting journey to see where we end up with this.
I absolutely agree. We are here on this show more often than not pro passengers, because we've
always
talked, our position with the ME3, our position about being pro competition is all about that.
Yeah, but pro competition, pro passenger, absolutely, always.
It's true that this whole pitch thing is becoming a big part of the debate. When I was invited by Airbus for the reveal of Airspace, their new cabin branding, if you want, I remember a journalist, or even 2, asked them about the because they were promoting the number of seat per row and the seat pitch. And they said, yeah, but at the end, the journalist said, the airline will choose, and the airline could choose to actually have more seats per row. And that's true. At the end of the day, the lessor or the airline is responsible. But Kendall, please keep challenging us on this, because I think what you're doing and the organization doing is actually valid. We need bodies to protect the public, to protect the consumers. FlyerRights.org. Kendall can be found on Twitter at Kendall Flyers. I'll put both links in the show notes. By the way, guys, I'm being slightly late these days to put the show notes on. I prioritize the actual show or the show notes. Please forgive me for that. I'm traveling a lot, which means I sometimes don't have the time. So we'll invite Kendall. Now, the irony in this, and obviously because we just talked about, coach seats, you finally, you ended up flying Emirates for a very, very, very long trip. Many, many legs. You're going to tell us about it on on business class. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Holy crap.
Yeah, because it's exactly, it seems to be, holy crap. There's two holy craps here. The first one is the product, and then is your story, because that was augmented by some, events, let's put it that way. They were probably outside the control of Emirates, but still, so go on.
Yeah, so let's start with Emirates Business Class. What an incredible product.
Yeah.
Just amazing. I can see why you're so loyal to them and why you rave about them. I flew on the A380 for 3 of the 4 legs and the 777 on the other. The A380 Business Class product is just incredible. The seat itself is it's comfortable, it's big, it's very private. The screen is bigger than my TV. It's got all the great little amenities and pockets and just everything you would want, and you feel like you're getting extraordinarily good value. The food was incredible. The service, the people were all exemplary in flight. Just an outstanding product. And of course, Dubai Airport, the Emirates facilities there are mind-blowing. I sent Paul a message when I got there to the lounge. This isn't a lounge. This is an entire terminal. And it really is like, so imagine, imagine a series of gates, like a pier of gates 1 through 20. You're talking about a long, 100-meter long, at least, maybe even 200 meters long. Then you add another floor to that on top of it, another story, and that entire thing is a lounge.
Yeah, exactly.
And it feels like they've done it so sensibly, where it's like almost little rooms as opposed to one huge cavernous lounge. It's like these rooms that you can go into.
So you were in Concourse A, which is the newest concourse for Emirates. These lounges, so they're stacked in floors. It's an entire floor is the business lounge. Then on top, you have I think it's below. You have an entire floor, which is the first class lounge. And basically, all the A gates are accessible directly through the lounge. You take an elevator and you get into the plane. These feels more like private, if is that the term you use. The lounge at Concourse B is also staggeringly big, but it probably has a feeling of being this big, huge lounge because it has this kind of open space feel to it.
Yeah,
just so people know what to expect.
And you gave me some great advice saying, if you can get over to Concourse A, and luckily my flight from Dubai to Singapore was out of Concourse A, so I got to enjoy that lounge. But yeah, just an amazing product. Even the 777 product, which was much older, well, relatively, was still very, very good. I was really, really impressed. There were a few glitches with the staff on the ground. They weren't nearly as sort of customer friendly as the folks in the sky. But
I think that's due to the fact, because I've sensed a difference. I started flying Emirates in 2010 and I've been flying them since, not like so regularly that I take them every month, but I've had a good experience with them. And you could feel that the airline grew so fast, adding so more capacity, more cities.
Yes.
DXB seems almost at capacity. When you're in the lounge, you're fine, obviously. But when you're not in the lounge, it feels like cramped with people.
Yes.
So, and I guess probably the quality went slightly down on the ground since then. I will admit that. It's still very good, right? Because if you ever fly any other airline, you're not going to say Emirates is bad, but it's true probably that they've grown so fast that they have these growing pains that are still very visible.
Yeah, and again, that was such a small thing compared to the rest of the experience. I was really so for context, last week I did San Francisco, Heathrow, Frankfurt, Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Dubai, Frankfurt, London.
That's 22 miles?
22,220 miles.
In how many days?
6 days.
I think you've bitten me because I think I've done, hold on. I think I've done more miles with more cities, but I was in more days, probably 10 days. Or I've done more miles in the same amount of days. It was last January, but less cities. So yeah, you have the crown. I'm bowing.
I would certainly not recommend anybody try and do that. Those legs were on BA and obviously Emirates. I did a leg on Singapore Airlines, A380 from Singapore to Hong Kong in premium economy, which I have to say, it was underwhelming.
Oh, wow. Do you think it's because you just had flown Emirates?
No. Actually, that's a good question. I thought that the physical product was fine. It's nowhere near as good as Cathay's seat, just in terms of pure comfort. The IFE was great. The food was utterly inedible.
Oh, wow. That's surprising.
I mean, Cathay's was great. It was even worse than BA's economy. It was just disgusting.
That's bad.
And the service was lousy. But, it was a 2.5-hour flight. It was fun to be in a 380. And then I did Dragonair from Hong Kong to Shanghai. And this is when I was coming home. This is where it all started to go wrong.
Just one question before we go there. Was it your first time in an A380 that was non-Emirates? Or
No, because I flew BA A380 from San Francisco to London, which was excellent. In economy, was excellent. Really,
because
really
for me, I only flown A380s in Emirates. I'm going to fly for the first time a non-Emirates A380 tomorrow with Thai Airways.
Oh, I'm excited to hear about that.
And then another one with Asiana, but I'll get there to the next show. So I'm pleased that you say that, because I don't want people to feel that I'm this kind of pro-Emirates guy at all costs. The product is actually solid. But then...
Wow, yeah, it really is.
Nothing against Emirates, because it was probably not their fault, but then all hell broke loose for you. So just tell us the story.
Yeah, so none of it, I hasten to add, none of it was Emirates' fault. I flew from Hong Kong to Shanghai on Dragonair and checked at the gate, and there was the noise when they scanned my boarding pass, and I was upgraded, which is great.
Oh, yeah, remember? Yeah, nice.
Yeah, yes. Dragonair A330, sit down in this really nice new seat. Looks comfortable. And
so it was business, not premium eco,
business,
right?
yeah. They just have a two-class system. The service was great, but we sat on the ground and sat on the ground and sat on the ground. And the captain comes on and says, hey, there's a problem with the fuel flow computer. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. And you're like, okay, fine. We kind of need that. You take as long as you want to figure that out. And so they were replacing it. And then they came back about 45 minutes later and said, yeah, that didn't work. So we need to power down the entire airplane for 5 minutes to get it to reset. So the entire plane goes dark except for the emergency exit light. So pitch black for 5 minutes. Then it comes back on 20 minutes later. Yeah, that didn't work. We're going to have to change airplanes. So they, we all get off the airplane, and I was messaging Paul throughout this entire thing. I was never upset or mad or not once, because it's safety. They take as long as you want to fix these problems. I don't care if it was some other thing. I don't, whatever. I would have been mad, but anyway, I had lounge access because I'm a One World Sapphire member, so. I went to Cathay's excellent lounge and that far into CLK. We got back on the airplane, flew to Shanghai, and I booked a hotel to stay at Shanghai that night. But
just a question, because I didn't know, were you upgraded on that replacement flight as well, or did you get your coach seat?
Great question. Yes, the seat map was maintained.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So there was no problem there. And actually, they canceled the Cathay Shanghai flight and consolidated it with our flight. So a bunch of people got upgraded. I never got to use my hotel in Shanghai. I did get to do the 144-hour visa-free entry into China now.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great, which means, because, visas into China are time-consuming and incredibly expensive, but there are a handful of cities now in China, Shanghai is one of them, where if you have a passport from, I think it's like 21, maybe more than that, countries, you can go in without having a visa. And it was a seamless process. You have to have an ongoing ticket to a third country. Correct. So you can't go London, Shanghai, London. They won't let you do that. But if you're going, like I was, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Dubai, no problem. You do it at the immigration desk. They check when you check in for your flight when you leave Hong Kong, but it was a piece of cake.
But hold on. You were supposed to use that because you were supposed to be in a hotel, but since your flight was so delayed, did you even have time to step out of the airport?
I had to go landside because my flight was more than 4 hours away. So they made you go through immigration. I couldn't stay landside or airside, sorry.
That happened to me once years ago when there was not this 144-hour visa thing. And I was going from Singapore to Tokyo, and I was routing via Shanghai. I think it was 2011. And I ended up having the same situation as you. Only that, for some reason, I passed through a door and then another door trying to look for the other flight and end up being outside of the airport without visa. I could have disappeared in China. Of course, I didn't do. Yeah, I was like, this is not supposed to happen, because, all the people in the flight, it was China Easter, were all Chinese. And I was just following them like, okay, I need to go somewhere, I guess. I went out of there. I was like, wow, I'm in China without a visa. Anyway, go on with the story because that's still just barely the beginning.
So I booked my flight, obviously, and I booked the hotel because I wanted to sleep before my 7 a.m. flight on Emirates to connect to Dubai and get home. Obviously, I forfeited my hotel, and that is what it is. If you're interested, if they gave us 300 Hong Kong dollars in cash.
Oh, that's nice.
For
wow.
the delay, which is like 25 British pounds. I was expecting,
it's $40.
demanding, nothing. It was a nice gesture. Handed an envelope with 3 $100 Hong Kong dollar bills in it. Yeah. So I got on the Emirates.
That's tax-free money then.
I know. It was a safety issue, which I know that they are responsible for. It's not like an act of God, like weather or something, but whatever. So I boarded the 777-300, the Emirates, and sat down. As I was telling Paul, it's a very strange configuration.
It's the old configuration, yes.
The old configuration. But it's still a very comfortable product. And we were all on board, and the doors were closed. And then a poor lady, an elderly lady, had a heart attack.
Oh, wow. You were on the ground still?
We were on the ground. Thank goodness for all involved. We were still on the ground. We hadn't even pushed back. And so they had to get her off and her husband. It was obviously it's a scary moment for them. And from what I understand, she was fine because the captain told us not fine, but she lived. She didn't die. So that was 2 hours late. And I had a connecting flight in Dubai. But again, it's one of those things like, you can't be mad. You're a dick if you're mad at something like that, So we take off, and then just south of Hong Kong, we hit turbulence for 2.5 hours. And I fly a lot, and I'm 36 years old. That was easily the worst turbulence I have ever experienced. Like
shit.
We were like pitching and yawing and rolling, and the plane was groaning, and people were screaming, and stuff was flying everywhere. The captain was yelling at the flight attendants to strap in. And it lasted on and off for about 2.5 hours. Honestly, I just kicked back, put the downward-facing camera on the screen, and just watched. Because it was cool
I do,
to see the plane kind of like pitch and roll in relation to the ground.
You know what? When that happens, you get vaccinated. It happened to me once, and since then, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. Like it was clear air turbulence because I could see down. We were thousands of feet above any cloud. We were in a bad patch of air. So it wasn't that really brutal, cumulonimbus turbulence. It was just like on high seas turbulence. So you weren't having the massive drops or anything like that. And then so I thought I missed my connection, and forgive me for the length of this tale, but we get through that. The service is great. Product is great. Land in Dubai 3 minutes after the flight to Frankfurt was supposed to leave. And I thought, okay.
Just hold on. They brought medical.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Right? Yeah.
When we landed in Dubai, there was ambulance paramedics waiting to meet
proving
people.
that it was actually quite a big turbulence, so that our listeners
Obviously,
get it.
the injuries weren't enough for us to divert, but there were people who'd been knocked around a little bit.
Always wear your seatbelt, guys, even if it's if even the sign is off. Always get anyway.
Because there were points where I think that the turbulence was pretty, wasn't as bad as we had endured earlier in the flight, but I was like, man, I wouldn't want to be walking around in this. And people were. And that's the crazy thing. Even when the seatbelt sign was on and we were going through the worst of it, people were like, I just need to nip to the bathroom. I'm like, whoa. Anyway, get to Dubai. I clearly missed the departure of my flight. And they booked me on a flight 15 hours later.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, no, just can you please put me on a flight to London? And they're like, oh, no, we've held the Frankfurt flight for you. You and one other person. I was like, okay.
You held the man, you're such a VIP.
I just wanted to get home.
You're such
I just wanted to get home to London.
You're such a VIP. It happened to me only once in my life when I held a flight. Twice, but honestly. And once it was because it was some very big, important CEO. I cannot mention his name with me. I was not with him, but we are just lucky to be on the same flight. And the other time was in Osaka, where the Emirates flight, so thank you Emirates, waited for me a full hour. A full hour because I was connecting with one ticket they bought me from Tokyo to Osaka. They waited an hour.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was like, but you know what? That was, again, 2011. I don't think they will do that again anymore. So you got your flight then?
Yeah, they put me on the Frankfurt flight, and then that was delayed leaving. And on the flight, using Emirates excellent in-flight Wi-Fi, $1 for 500 megabytes.
Yeah, that's
and when you're on
amazing.
it is because on Singapore Airlines,
It's
it
a
was
joke.
like it was $6 for 15 megabytes.
Yeah. And they say, oh, you can browse as much as you want. 15 megabytes? What the hell are you talking
15
about?
megabytes. No, you sneeze and you've used 15
Exactly.
megabytes. So anyway, I booked a flight because I wasn't sure if they were going to put me on a London flight. So I hadn't booked how I was going to get from Frankfurt to London. So I booked a Lufthansa flight that left in good time after our flight was supposed to land. Of course, the flight was delayed, and we landed and we taxied in, and I was like, you know what? The flight was literally supposed to be leaving in 5 minutes, and there was no way I was going to get on. But I got off the plane, I was like, you know what? I miss my wife, I miss my kids, and I sprinted across Frankfurt Airport, went through security, where they were, of course, very thorough.
As always, in Frankfurt.
As always, I thought of you as soon as I was doing it. And I get to the gate where the flight was leaving.
Did you have to go through the tunnel?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's the one you can. It's a straight tunnel for those who've never been. It seems you're working forever. You can run on that one, and it seems like
and
this
there was
never
no
ends.
way. And so you go through security. I get to the gate where the flight is, and I'm like, I'm going to ask them to put me on the next flight, which is about 3 hours later. And they were boarding.
Oh wow.
And so I got on a beautiful, brand new Lufthansa A321, which I forgot how big that airplane is.
It is actually, yeah.
And I got home, and sorry for that long, epic tale, but if you're going to take anything away from it, is that business class on Emirates is extraordinarily good on all fronts. It's easily the best I've ever experienced.
Oh, wow, yeah, it's a good endorsement coming from you because you've experienced quite a few. You said it for you; it's actually better than the BA business class, which I've never taken. So
It's like night and day, not even comparable.
Wow. I hope so. You probably will fly them again. They're not as liberal as used to be in upgrades. I'm still lucky to get some time-to-time upgrades. I mentioned the last show was upgraded. I forgot to mention one thing. I was upgrading first class. Yeah, guys, okay, you hate me now. The new A380 was in. Alex spotted that it was only 2 months old. Emirates has on the ceiling LEDs that create this kind of night sky. They've added the same on the ground. So you also have stars, LEDs in the carpet below you in first class.
So it must feel kind of like you're
Yeah,
floating in space.
It's amazing.
Wow.
Anyway,
Yeah, they just got a great product.
I would never pay for first class because even if I were rich, because I think it's crazy, especially when you have such an amazing business class behind it. But anyway, from time to time, so I hope, Alex, that you will be able once to be upgraded in first class.
One of the things, speaking of first class, that was good about my Singapore Airlines flight is when we landed, I asked to see the suites.
Oh, yeah.
And they took me up to the front end of the airplane and sort of gave me the grand tour of these suites, which are like the size of a Manhattan apartment. They were really, really impressive. I don't know how much they cost comparable to business class, but great job, Singapore Airlines, on at least the physical product.
There you go. That was a long story, but that was totally worth it.
Yeah, sorry,
no,
guys.
that's fine.
You're probably like, dude, shut up.
No, that was fine. We've got a lot of feedback from our listeners, and some of them say, Paul, Alex, tell us more about your flying stories. They're fun. So, here you go. You got like 15 minutes of an Alex flying story with some small interjections by May. And you've been still using as well TripIt to follow your trips?
Yeah, I tried a few of the others, but always seem to gravitate back towards TripIt. It works.
Yeah, it works. I'm still using all of them because I bought some monthly subscription to a few others, so I'm going to see how they pan out for a few more months. But it's true that I always tend to come back to TripIt. TripIt, for those interested, has upgraded the design of the website. It's a bit strange because only a few pages have been upgraded. So you have this kind of very fresh, new kind of look. And then you click on one of the tabs and you end up in the old. But I mean, they're going there. So if you use TripIt, it's always a good resource. And the network is interesting. I can know where Alex is just by looking at his TripIt. So sorry, Kendall, still on the very fancy seats that we will never get to fly, probably Alex and myself. There's a new type of first seat, which is kind of a throne seat. So basically seats would be stacked one above the other. Not exactly stacked one above the other, but you have two. And in the small sections between the two normal seats, you'll have a bed above. I don't know how to best describe that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting setup. And actually, it looks like one of those ones that could actually be a thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Compared to so many of these that we see where it's like, well, that's just never going to happen. But this one, it looks very pragmatic. I kind of like it. And actually, how they show the seat turning into the bed is very similar to how Singapore Airlines suites are set up, where the bed is kind of almost comes from above. Very neat. Is this reality or is this just an idea?
No, I think it's still a proposal. They've made that layout for the front of the cabin of the 777. It's marketing. You want to try it out to see if there is any interest. That could see reality because it seems that it keeps the comfort that probably people in the front of the cabin expect, whilst adding some more capacity in the cabin as well. So we could actually see something like that. The other thing that would probably not happen is having, I'm just going to mention the title, the airplane cabin of the future may have king-size beds. Yeah, not in coach, guys. And by the way, the residence in Etihad already has a king-size bed. I'm not sure that will ever happen because it seems to be reducing capacity in first more than augmenting it.
Yeah, and we've talked in the past about this trend towards de-emphasizing first and actually a lot of airlines removing it completely. So if you're reducing the physical footprint and just having like Etihad, a couple of residents or maybe 4, this is an interesting idea. I mean, of course, it looks incredible. And it's made for 2 people, right?
Yeah.
So you have 2 seats in takeoff and landing mode side by side, like almost like a couch, and then it turns into this king side bed.
Back to the cabin behind, where most people fly, even me and Alex. A new patent. So we always say in this show that patents are what they are. They're patents. This is like a bench, basically. Instead of having a seat, you have a bench. So it could be more configurable. What do you think about that?
It's a neat idea. Again, like you said about patents, so many of them are just land grabs. But you're right. It's basically a bench that could be configured to hold 2 people in like a regional business class, 3 people in standard economy, or a family. So you would have like 2 adults on the outside and they have the seatbelt fixtures for 2 smaller people in the middle. I think you may actually see, we're already starting to see things like this, right? With Air New Zealand's economy bed seat.
Oh, correct.
Which kind of has like an extension that comes out. And so they sell a row of 3 to 2 people. And there's a little flap that folds up that turns it into a bed. So you are seeing these kind of multi-function economy seats. And I think this is just an extension of it. Why not?
Why not? Exactly. Still talking about inventions. Our favorite type of invention, smart luggages. We always have every week. It seems there's a new one coming. So this one is on Kickstarter. It's called, how do you pronounce that? Floaty.
Yeah.
So this one it looks nice, to be honest. It's very well put. The design is nice. It has a built-in scale. It has a smart handle that actually notifies you. I don't know what the hell. But anyway, it has anti-loss. So basically something that tells you that your luggage is being stolen or it's far away from you if it's in the hold. It has one thing that I actually kind of like. It has suspensions on the wheel, so it's a 4-wheeler. So when you are carrying around, and I know that some airports have very even floors that could actually ease your pain. But again, I'm not sure about this thing. Would you buy that? So
they've already smashed through their target.
Yep.
They wanted to raise 100,000 US. They've raised 400,000. If you showed me this luggage, a picture of it and said it's not smart or anything, it's very, very attractive.
It is, right? Yeah.
And looking at some of the videos of the practical features, like how your smaller piece of hand luggage can strap to the top of it in a really kind of secure way, it looks great. I wouldn't use it for any of the other crap, but as a physical piece of luggage, it looks fantastic.
And for $50 more, if you buy it, you get that battery. The one thing that I like about this battery, as opposed to all the other batteries we've been hearing about since, it's basically a battery that you can remove and take with you. And it not only charges your devices, iPads, iPhones, and Androids, but it also can charge your laptop, which is very rare. And I think it's smart, not in smart luggage, but I think it's smart that it's an add-on. Then you can just leave it there or just take it with you. So if you want to actually put in the hold, fine. If you don't want to use it, you just don't pay the 50 quid or you just leave it at home. I think that's actually the best way of thinking about a smart luggage. The notification thing, whatever, I don't know, but this is actually a good way to think about it.
And they have a detachable electronics compartment as well, which is like a sleeve for your, imagine a laptop sleeve with a couple of pockets that sits inside the luggage, but you can also remove it. And it's really well done. So my message to people who are doing this type of thing is, I will back great luggage products on Kickstarter until the cows come home. You don't have to fill it with bells and whistles and nonsense. Just make great luggage. Solve that problem, because there's not a lot of kind of mid-range strong, sturdy, ergonomic luggage out there. I like this one. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I like this one.
Over time, insisting over smart luggages, show after show after show, you'll end up buying one.
I've been worn down.
like in 80 episodes or something, because we'll probably see 80 more of these luggages coming up. We had a good feedback from one of our listeners, David Verch. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name, on our Facebook page. He's using LugLoc. It's one of these devices. I mentioned one in the last show. The floaty carry-on has this as well. It's a device you put in your luggage and that tracks your luggage if you want to know where it is. It works with GSM as well. It tells me it works pretty well, as in it will ping you when it arrives at the belt, for instance. He's not sure exactly how it works. He put also a few pictures on the thread on Facebook. I'll put the link in the show notes because it's accessible even if you're not on Facebook, or even if you don't like our page, which you should, by the way. The interesting bit is that it seems to be smart enough not to always, ping you. It only pings you at certain times. I'm not sure it's because of geolocation, and more because it's understanding when it moves and it doesn't move. David tells us that it's been actually proven pretty useful, and the app, he puts a screenshot of the app, was also pretty well done. So if you really are concerned about where your luggage is at all times, or at least if it's with you and actually with you in the plane, LugLoc seems to be a good investment. I've almost never check in, so I would not buy it. But if I were, I would consider it probably.
And very cool to have some actual feedback from a user as well, instead of me mouthing off about how useless smart luggage and luggage trackers are. So thanks for taking the time to let us know that it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And one thing he mentions, the battery life is actually extremely well, which you should expect. You should expect from this. But obviously, if it stops working after 2 hours, then you are completely screwed. Few shout outs. One to our friend Eric Hoffman, husband in tow. He's been again mentioning us in his latest podcast episode along with his wife. It's one about luxury travel. So again, Kendall, sorry, because we seemingly keep talking about the front of the cabin today. It's a nice episode. You should listen to it. And thank you, Eric, for the mention. Marcus Vulture, who's been a long-time listener, has told me that my edits, so the way I edit the show, when we record Alex and me, I have usually between 1 hour and 15, 1 hour and 30 minutes of show, and I try to reduce it to like under an hour. It's true that I was a bit heavy-handed in the last episode. Apologies for that. It seems like very, very fast-paced, so I'll try to be a bit better. And he also says, why do you guys stop at 60 minutes? It's because we had a lot of feedback of people wanting to listen for 60 minutes and no more. Marcus answers to that, yeah, but people do not know there's a pause button. But anyway, sorry for those who thought that I was a bit heavy-handed in the edition. I'll try to be better. I was also under a rush. I really wanted that episode to go out. I'll try to be a bit better for this one. But please keep telling me if I don't edit in the good way, because I'd like to become better at it.
And if you want to know, we use Zencaster as our podcasting platform, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. I agree.
If this is if you ever want to start a podcast and you have more than, I'm probably just doing it yourself. It's a very good piece of software.
Yeah, and I use Adobe Audition to edit, though a tool like Audacity is very, very well equipped to edit as well. A few more shout outs. We got 2 emails that I want to mention. First, we got an email by Andrea Riley from upgradedpoints.com, which is a very good resource if you're into getting your points, frequent flyer miles, all the hacks and stuff. They've just released a new guide to ITA Matrix.
Yes,
it's well done, right?
So good.
It is really well done.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's a complex piece of software, and this is a really, really good guide. Very comprehensive guide. Great work, guys.
And Anton, who's also a long-time listener, thank you, because he's been scribbling notes while on the train listening to the LCA episode. He said that the Airbus strategy of doing airspace, the branding of the cabin is a double-edged sword, because, and that comes back to the point we were making about Kendall's email earlier on, people will probably say, yeah, that's amazing, I'm on an A380 or I'm on an A320 or whichever, but if you end up being completely cramped, whichever aircraft you're in, you might actually go into negative mode. That's true. But then again,
that's a good point.
That's a good point. But then again, I think still Airbus has to do something about it. Whether or not they're involved, people will complain anyway. So they're taking charge of it. But yeah, it's right. It's a double-edged sword. Social media is always a double-edged sword when you deal with the customers. Another shout out to somebody called California Flying. It could have been you, Alex, using that name.
No, I promise it wasn't me.
Our first ever iTunes review, so thank you so much, 5 stars. Fast-paced review of airlines and travel from hosts that have good chemistry and good personal stories to share. Alex shared a very, very nice 15-minute story, so I hope, California Flying, that you're happy. Thank you for the iTunes review, our first.
Yes.
I'll drink some champagne or beer to that later today.
If you listen, please do us a huge favor and go on iTunes and review. It would mean a lot to us.
So, we still haven't bought a drone, neither Alex or myself, but in terms of aviation, there's been stories about drones all the time, right? Very close calls to aircraft. We heard that in JFK. We heard that in London. And very recently, there was a story that apparently a drone not only was very close to an aircraft, but apparently hit a aircraft.
Yes, there was a plane, a BA A320 landing at Heathrow, and the story came out last week that it had been hit by a drone. And I sent a message to you saying this was an inevitability and things are now going to have to change and yada, yada, yada. Well, it turns out that it wasn't a drone at all. And there was no evidence to suggest that it was a drone and that it could have been a plastic bag. And so this story has gone from, let's not discount the threat of drones hitting airplanes. It's still very, very scary, and I still think it's an inevitability. But it doesn't look like it was a drone at all. It looks like it was a plastic bag or something, which, if a plastic bag going into an engine when a plane is on final could have equally devastating effects. So it's not completely inert, but it's not a drone either. So it was interesting how that story went from sensational to, very quickly.
I wish that, in the UK, for those who don't live here, now you have to pay to actually get a plastic bag when you do your groceries. It's 5p. So I wish that I could buy a drone for 5p, because that would be There was, though, a story, because you say it's an inevitability. There was a near miss at Charles de Gaulle with an A320. I think a drone came 16 feet close to an aircraft. So, it's like all these stories. People either are too scared or just don't care. And I think in the middle, we have to be careful about those. For those who own a drone and want to take great footage of airports, don't ruin it for the rest of us who just want to have a little bit of fun, I think. So be smart, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Last story of the day, we talked last episode about the fact that the new boss of IATA would be the current CEO of Air France KLM. We also said in the same episode that Christophe Mueller was doing great things at Malaysian, and suddenly these two stories crashed together. Sorry for using the word crash in an aviation podcast, but they collided to create something new. So we were prescient. We talk about stories and suddenly something happened, right?
Yeah. So I don't think anybody predicted this. Christophe Mueller is stepping down as the CEO of Malaysian, only 30% into his contract. He has to serve out a 6-month period, but he's walking away, citing personal reasons. I think it's less than a year into the role. This is really, really surprising. I think it's sad. There's no way he's been able to do all of the things that he wanted to do and needed to be done. Now, of course, the rumors start flying when someone says it's personal issues. Apparently, the flight attendant or air crew union, I can't remember which one, in Malaysia have said they thought this was an inevitability, that he would be really frustrated by the internal politics of the airline and has left as a result. There was a rumor flying around that he is now going to take over KLM Air France. I have seen nothing to support that rumor, but I like that rumor. I'm sure that he got frustrated with the politics and table flipped and is leaving, which is a damn shame because he's got such a great track record of doing exactly what Malaysia needs to have done to it. So I'm sure we'll hear more and see where he lands. Whoever gets him is very lucky.
Yeah. Maybe then that we said that, something else will happen because, again, we're telling you stories here on this show that always lead to some crazy outcome. So let's see what happens. But yeah, for me, he has, maybe it's some kind of myth, but he's really the guy that turns around airlines, and he could have turned around Malaysia. He actually started to. It's a bit of a shame that it seems to be stopping right in the middle. I hope for Malaysia that they find someone that will follow these tracks and keep actually doing great things with that airline, because they really need to, and also worth being saved.
I think it's important to say, if it is a genuine personal reason, I hope everything is okay in his world, and that it's not something that is significant enough for him to feel like he needs to leave.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. You're absolutely right. So now to Moscow. So you've never been to Moscow?
I've never been, so I'm excited to hear about it.
It was my first time. So there are actually 2 airports in Moscow. I flew to DME, Domodedovo International Airport. So it's Moscow, but it's still like not Moscow. It's actually 42 kilometers away from Moscow. So that's 25 something miles. So that's not next door. It's an airport that feels that, Russia will organize the World Cup in 2018. And you can feel that in the airport, it seems to be building and building and building up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a part of the airport was already opened. The rest will open, I think, by 2017. They're going for a similar approach in Amsterdam, which is this kind of one big terminal. And once you're in, you get anywhere you want, right? It's which I kind of enjoy, not having to switch terminals and to change security, and like you do in Frankfurt, for instance, from time to time. So it's a good idea, but it's still a work in progress. The one thing that is obviously striking for those who go there is that once you arrive in the airport to leave Russia, there is 2 securities. So there's a first security before you get in. I will say that the security is a bit not the best, the first one, because honestly, so many people were pushing. People were not removing their belts and stuff. They were beeping and still they would be let go. I did the same, when I saw that, I said, you know what, no point for me to go all 9 yards, remove every piece of metal out of me. But still, it's not something you expect. There had been an attack, if you remember, I think it was 2004 at that airport, terror attacks. There had been a bomb. So probably that's the reason why now they screen you before you actually get into the terminal. The airport itself is actually, I was not having high expectations, because so many of my Russian friends, when I told them I fly there first, they say, why do you fly to that airport? It's too far. It's not the best one, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, I was these reduced expectations. Actually quite enjoyed it. Arriving there was a breeze. You mentioned earlier in the show the fact that getting a visa for China can be a pain. Trust me, getting a visa for Russia is not also a very easy process. It can be also a bit expensive. I've actually found the staff that were actually nice. People were telling me, you see, the staff is not. They were actually nice. The whole luggage area needs improvement, so I'm thankful they're augmenting it. Yes, I had checked in luggage for once with me. So the only thing I will say about traveling there is that it's far, and the transportation links are basically almost non-existent. If you want to go to Moscow, you basically have to use a cab or a car hire.
Oh, wow.
The interesting bit for someone like you and me, and I had hinted at it when I talked about my travels that led me to go to Russia, I think it was 2 episodes ago. When you land, there is a cemetery for aircraft that sits at the very, very end of one of the runways. You have Ilyushin's Tupolev, so very old aircraft, and you have 747s. I think I counted 2. I need to look back at my pictures, because I was, of course, with my camera taking as many pictures as I could in some videos and stuff. It's like the Mojave Desert. Of course, the Mojave Desert in the US is much, much bigger. Max Gervitz, our friends, told me that I don't think they have a proper aircraft cemetery in Russia, which is why they basically deposit them there. For people like us that love aircraft, it's fascinating. I almost wished, and I didn't ask, I don't know if it's possible, I'm sure it's not because of safety reasons. I would love to being able to go up close and go there and take pictures, probably, but that would be amazing. So yeah, it's not the best airport I've ever been to. It's a work in progress, so I will reserve judgment. Is it a good airport to do layovers? To be very honest, I don't really think so. It seemed a bit crammed. There are many lounges, so if you have any of the cards that allow you to get into lounges, they're actually okay. So I was into the general airport lounge, not one of these branded lounge bar airlines, and it was pretty good as well. There's free Wi-Fi, so you could theoretically have a layover. I'm not sure it's a good idea. I know the city is far. I fell in love with Moscow. I only stayed 48 hours and need to get back. So I would recommend to people, if you ever have to do a layover there, well, you'd better go to Moscow. It's worth it.
Well, I've never been to Russia, so I am excited to head out there.
And you'll soon be able to go with an A380. I was surprised that Emirates would fly a 777, but I think, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, Anton, because you know that airport well, I think it still cannot accommodate the A380.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, Anton, if you have any more stuff to say about DME, please do, because I'm really not an expert. But for plane spotters, just land there to get as much snaps as you can. They are, at least it seemed to me, on the left-hand side when you land. On that, Alex, are you flying soon again, I think?
Yes, I am going to Sardinia next weekend.
Oh, wow.
Which will be a first for me, yeah. So, and then a few local trips before back to Asia.
I'm doing that round-the-world trip. I'm flying to Macau so I'm doing London, Bangkok, on A380, Bangkok, Hong Kong on a 747-400, finally!
Amazing.
Then I'm taking a ferry to Macau, then the ferry back to Hong Kong, Incheon, JFK with Asiana. I'm staying in New York 2 days, and then, I'm going to try Norwegian to fly back to the UK because I want to test the disruptor,
Well, good, because in next episode you can come in and give us your 15 minutes on this epic journey that you're about to undertake.
I certainly hope I won't have either turbulences or delays, especially because I think Incheon JFK will be the longest flight I've ever taken. I'm not sure because I've done pretty long flights, but I think it might be the longest one. So I certainly hope that one will be smooth because I don't want
Me too.
15 hours of turbulences.
No.
So
I hope you have a smooth journey.
So enjoy Sardinia, the wines and the food, and I'll see you in the next episode.
All right, guys, take care.
Safe travels.
On behalf of Layovers and the entire crew, we would like to thank you for joining us on this podcast today. And we're looking forward to seeing you on board again next week. Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.